council member. Okay. Yes, if you could just introduce yourself.
Yes, Leonard Fleming, DC News Now. Mayor, how did you come up with the $10 million figure? And you talked about FEMA reimbursing you. What is the process for that, and are you certain that FEMA will reimburse you?
We are certain that these are qualifying expenses. The initial tranche, which we will take from our contingency cash, really represents how much we think it will get started to have a contract staff, which remains one of the biggest issues that we need. We need people to make sure that we have coverage throughout the day. So the largest part of that number is an estimate on what it will take to get a contractor on board. Other questions? Yes.
Mayor Bowser, why have you not come out more forceful against the Biden administration on what's happening?
I've said frequently what we need from the federal government. I've said frequently how disappointed I am that our first need for more people on the ground that helps to respond to a humanitarian crisis quickly. We have called on the National Guard and been granted the National Guard a few dozen times since I've been mayor, so I'm very disappointed in that. And also, I'm very disappointed in not having a federal site that we can use.
So is he partly to blame here then?
Is the federal government?
The president?
Yes. The president, the White House, and anybody else who was involved in the National Guard not being granted for the district's humanitarian response. Yes.
Mayor, going along with that, where are those conversations with the federal government at this point?
They're ongoing. And anybody else who has asked the question? Yes.
Hi.
Can you just introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Amanda Michelle Gomez, WAMU DCist. Migrant families are currently staying at 2 hotels, the Days Inn and Hampton Inn. Do you anticipate moving? It sounds like this office is going to be providing temporary accommodations, or are you going to continue to move more families in there, or I know the Hampton Inn is a COVID hotel, it's used for COVID quarantine, so are families going to be moved out of there and into Days Inn only? What are the housing services provided?
Right now, we consider that a temporary housing service that we're providing at the Days Inn, and it is in line with what the Migrant Services Office will do, provide temporary housing while people are moving on to their next destinations.
Are the families at Hampton Inn going to be, which is a quarantine hotel, going to be moved to Days Inn soon?
I don't know that that's our plan.
Okay. And then a second question, students are being enrolled, migrant students are being enrolled in DCPS. Are there going to be more ESL teachers at those schools that most are going to, or what other supports are those students going to receive once at school?
Our students, regardless of whether they are coming from the Days Inn or they're coming from any other location in the district, will be served in our schools, and they will be served adequately. Yes, Mark.
I got several questions, Mayor Bowser.
Okay.
Can you tell us the number of students who are currently enrolled from the asylum seeking?
We think we have about 70.
And then can you tell me how many people are currently being housed either in the shelters or in the hotels right now?
Let me get you a specific number, Mark. We can't tell you how many are in the hotels. I'll get that number for you.
And then you mentioned in one of your slides having a presence at Union Station. What's that going to look like? Is that 24/7? Are you going to have a welcome center or some kind of processing center stand up at Union Station?
We don't currently have a space at Union Station. I think you know that we don't control Union Station, and we continue to work on having the appropriate space for our staff, contract staff, and potentially processing of people coming from buses at Union Station or close to Union Station.
Right, so what's that going to look like? Is that going to be something that's going to be, I mean, do you know yet when buses, is that coordination happening between Arizona and Texas that you know when buses leave, ETA on buses arriving, or are you just going to have to stand out there and wait?
We expect to have a 24/7 presence.
And then what about a center? Are you looking to stand up a center that one would both work kind of like Virginia Williams in the sense of a processing center for people as well as a place for people that, I know you had asked for the Armory for something like this. Are you looking for some kind of facility or building a facility like that where people could actually sleep and be processed, or one or the other?
We right now have an example in the region where people, after you kind of having initial, discussion, a processing, a triage, if you will, are staying up to 72 hours until they make other arrangements. We think that is a process that works well to deal with the immediate needs of arriving folks from Texas and Arizona. We don't have a likely space in the district. We continue with partner organizations to look for that type of space.
Inside or outside of the district?
All.
Is that breaking news that we're interested in?
What's that?
What Director Zeilinger just
94 families, 348 people staying at DC hotels.
at hotels. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you mentioned having a contract. Do you know, is that going to SAMU? Do you know who the contractor? Have you picked a contractor?
No, the contractor would not be the contract would not be with SAMU. It would be to support SAMU.
I don't understand. Can you clarify that?
It would not be with SAMU. It would be to contract personnel that would support SAMU.
Okay. And can you explain the difference between a state of emergency and declaring a public emergency? Is there something different between there? I mean, from COVID, we're used to you declaring a state of emergency or a health emergency. This is a public emergency. Is that different?
You could call it a humanitarian emergency. You could call it a migrant emergency. It's just the semantics, really. What it is a mayor's order that gives me some administrative authority that I don't normally have. And that administrative authority lasts for 15 days. I will be, when the council returns from recess, submitting a request for them to extend that emergency. And this will allow us to, for example, create this new Office of Migrant Services that also streamlines, because we don't currently have a system of services focused on this population, our migrant population. And this allows us to streamline those services while at the same time not burdening our homeless services system. Yes.
Mayor, Ted Hessen with Reuters. I'd like to ask you, do you have a sense of how many people you're preparing to come? And then when it comes to these hotel rooms for the families, what's the approximate cost for each family? Or is there some kind of metric you can give us to explain how much those hotel rooms are costing?
I don't right now, but I'm happy to provide that.
And then overall, do you have a sense of who you're expecting or how many you're expecting or preparing to receive?
All we know, this is what we know, is that the crisis at the border is not lessening, is getting worse. We're told that with uncertainty in, like the political system, as well as just weather, for example, that numbers increase during this time of year. And so we also know the political statements that we've heard from Texas and Arizona. So our expectation is to believe what they've said, and that hundreds of more buses will be coming over the fall. Yeah. Anybody who hasn't asked a question yet? Yes. Oh, let me just finish with the press, and then I'll come. Yes.
Yes, Mayor Bowser.
Yes, Lou.
Tomorrow,
Yep.
Washington Blade, and as you may know, Mayor, there's been reports that in various border stations where migrants are coming to the country, problems have surfaced regarding LGBTQ migrants, particularly transgender migrants, in terms of discrimination and mistreatment. There's been reports of that. Would you take steps to ensure that programs that you're announcing today and the efforts that you're announcing, those who are carrying them out would have a sensitivity and some knowledge on the potential issues impacting LGBTQ migrants?
Well, thank you for raising that. And anybody that we work with, we expect to uphold our DC values, and that includes in this space. So absolutely. And okay, I'll go for another round. I'll start with Stephanie.
Two questions, Mayor Bowser, if I may. You had mentioned the history of not getting the National Guard cooperation that you've requested in the past. You showed us the timeline starting since April. Why, given this humanitarian crisis that you pointed out, was this action not taken sooner?
We think we're actually taking it at the right time, where we have responded in a lot of different stages, not knowing the full capacity of what we would be dealing with from day to day or month to month. And so we thought it was very appropriate that we worked with our partner organizations who are very experienced in this work, who've done migrant services work, to work with them. The sheer capacity, or the sheer, not capacity, was the volume of the work and our expectation that that could increase really necessitates a broader coordination from us.
And then in reverse to that, or previous question, how does taking this action not give any credence to the frustrations being voiced by those governors, Texas and Arizona?
My response has nothing to do with what they think or what they say or what you think about what they say. Our response involves two things. How can we live up to our values and make sure that we have a humane, efficient process to deal with a crisis not of our making? And how can we make sure that the very robust human services that we have built here in the district that are meant to serve DC residents who are experienced in emergency aren't broken by their actions? That's what we're talking about today. Yes.
Yes, Mayor, you mentioned earlier about the migrants that some are being lied to and even tricked. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
I'm not entirely sure that people know that they're coming to DC. We also got reports, and we get reports that people are getting off at various places from Texas to DC. I'm not sure that people aren't promised that they're going to get X, Y, and Z when they get off buses. So it's just a lot that we don't know that's happening at the southern border when people are coming en route here.
Is this the state of Texas doing this?
I don't know.
Mayor, Janae with Axios.
Yes.
Is there any communication with Texas or Arizona?
We have attempted communications with all of our counterparts in emergency management and in the health and human services.
So you've reached out to directors, I guess?
Correct.
But not the governors.
Nothing from the governors?
I've answered your question. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, timeline do you have on when you might be able to stand up these support personnel that would be helping SAMU?
We're working expeditiously, Mark, and as soon as we know who we'll be working with, we'll announce that.
Can we hear from someone from SAMU?
Sure.
What this means for their efforts?
Of course.
And if you don't mind just identifying yourself, we appreciate that.